Hey everybody, it's Eric here with Spartan Autoworx.
And Eric here with Importapart and Pro Rebuild.
Today we're starting a new series on automotive repair, part replacement. We're both automotive professionals. We have unique automotive businesses. We're pretty good at the niche that we're in. So we're going to start a series talking about things that we commonly see and things that we want to help empower you, the customer, to make better buying choices and better diagnostic decisions, in your automotive endeavors.
So one of the first things we're going to talk about are the common misdiagnoses and some of the things that you need to look at on your vehicle. So a lot of people are very quick to replace a part, but it is much harder to diagnose it correctly. There's lots of things you need to check. You need to check your powers, your grounds. Is there moisture damage? Does it look like it's melted? Is it hot? What are all of the symptoms? Not just it doesn't start or this doesn't work. You need, you need to use the tools available at your disposal as in-depth as possible. So if you have a bidirectional scan tool, is a huge help, especially on some of these later model vehicles. Most of these parts are very complicated and won't talk to one of those simple scanners that AutoZone has. Going to AutoZone and having your codes read is great, but it'll only lead you so far.
I would agree with that, and I think a lot of people rely on the AutoZone diagnostic. Most people there aren't automotive professionals. They're part sellers, and they don't know how to properly diagnose it. They can go and read, the basic codes, which, they have the ability to do. And I get a lot of people that call me and say, oh, AutoZone says it's this, and it's completely off base. And you gotta remember, most of these people may not have training. They're looking up parts. Not talking bad about people at AutoZone or Advanced or any of the other places, but most people don't have any training in the field. So I get a lot of people that call me and AutoZone says, oh, it's, this part or that part, and it has nothing to do with that part. So that's why proper diagnosis is totally important. Having access to a good scan tool or going to a shop that can maybe read the codes for you. So like a lot of customers that call me, I'll send them and say, hey, you gotta find like a mom and pop shop. Like a mom and pop shop is more likely to help you probably read those codes cheaper, or even do them for free. A lot of times, like people come to my shop, I don't charge them to read codes. I have a couple shops I deal with, I can't believe I can't charge people to read codes. It takes 2 seconds.
And on that topic, reading codes, these cheap scan tools, there's not really a great difference in price between the ones that AutoZone has and the ones you can buy online that'll read the factory code. So, for instance, you may get one code on like an Actron, one of the cheaper handheld ones, and you'll get a much different set of codes, which will get you much further in the diagnostic path on a bidirectional or even just a really good scan tool. There's lots of companies that make good ones. They're not the thousands of dollars they used to be in the 90s. They're very affordable. $200, $300, $400 will get you something that will do almost anything you need to do, especially on some of the stuff that most people can tackle in their own garage.
And especially too with some of the diagnostic stuff, you have to read not just engine and transmission codes, which is what your basic scan tools will do. You've got to be able to do body control module codes and other components. Like just having one set of parameters to look at may not give you an overall picture, especially I deal with a lot of body control module stuff. You could have a body control module tripping up an engine controller or a transmission controller and be completely diagnosed. But since you can't read those other codes with a basic scan tool, you're never going to be able to come to a proper diagnosis.
Yeah, and part of the diagnosis is component location. So these manufacturers are really good at building cars. They're not so great at putting parts where they need to go to last forever. So, I've seen parts located in crash zones. Some of the Chrysler stuff the engine computer is very susceptible to a small collision. There are parts that they locate in the floorboards, like Volkswagens and Audis put a lot of very critical control units in the floorboard, and they actually tell you just don't park the car facing down because if the floorboard gets wet, that module will fry, and we saw quite a few of those.
Same like BMWs with the footwell modules.
Yep.
They go battle time. And was it like the X-Drive cars? Don't they have like the all-wheel drive controller in the floor?
Absolutely.
Like
you spill a soda and you're done. Actually, in the 90s, the Mazda Protege had a campaign. It's actually a technical service bulletin where you were supposed to install a piece of plastic over the engine control unit connectors because it's located right underneath the cup holder. So for the 95 to 98 Protege computers were going bad because people were spilling their waters and coffees and sodas, and it was frying the computer. So the fix was to put a piece of plastic over the connectors.
I wish I was the engineer that got paid to design that.
Yeah, I know.
But
Sounds
like
great.
on GM stuff too, like a lot of stuff like fuel system control modules, suspension control modules they put underneath the car. ABS modules. I don't really see ABS modules, even though they live underneath the vehicle in a lot of GM trucks. I really don't see water kill them. But I see like a lot of vibration, brake solder joints and stuff like that. But the suspension control modules, they completely rust out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an expensive module. They're hard to get a lot of times.
Yeah.
And the fuel system control module, the trailer brake control module, all those are located in susceptible areas. I've not only seen water intrusion, I'd say water intrusion is probably the biggest culprit for those to go bad. Not only have I seen water intrusion, but I've seen many people with fuel system control modules or trailer brake modules that no longer have the spare tire and there's no protection. Like one guy was off-roading and ran a piece of wood through the module.
It can happen.
So I don't know where they come up with some of the locations and not protecting them, or like especially the fuel system control module. If you have a boat, guess what happens? I love it. Like when people call me like May or April, like as soon as people start putting their boat in the water, they put the boat too far, or they put the truck too far in the water, and guess what? It fills the module up with water.
Yep.
Like whoever designed that and that got past stamped to go to production,
Yeah.
that should have been looked at way long ago.
Yeah, heat is another thing. A lot of these manufacturers, like Mercedes, 05 and later, the ECM is located on the top of the engine. It is basically the heat sink for the engine. They have all kinds of problems related to that, and it can all be traced down to inefficient solder joints, and mainly because of heat.
Yeah. One of our buddies that's a GM tech, he had one that he couldn't figure out what it was, and it was heat related. He actually took a heat gun to it and was able to reproduce it. You could drive it and never reproduce it. It was one of those things the customer kept coming back, and they could never find it. He took a heat gun to it and was able to reproduce it in the shop by applying heat to the computer. Obviously, the computer was overheating.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you go to replace these parts, you've completed your diagnosis. What's required to replace this? It's not just the old days in the 80s. You get to grab a part off the shelf, match the part number, and put it in. Now, everything requires programming these days. And I'm not even going to say late model. I mean, all the way back into the 90s, that stuff all requires programming. Otherwise, your car is going to not run at all, or certain parts of it, you'll have lights on in the dash. There's a lot of parts that require coding and programming, depending if it's European, if it's domestic. They all use different terminologies, but in turn, it's all the same thing.
Especially if you have emissions, the VIN number's got to match. Like here, we're in St. Louis, Missouri. We have emissions testing. If the VIN doesn't match and the computer doesn't match to the car, a lot of people call me like, well, I went to the junkyard and I found one that's, same motor, same training, same this, same year, whatever. Can I just go ahead and put it in? Well, that's fine. It probably has the same calibration or close to the same calibration. It'll probably work. But when you go get emissions testing, it'll never pass.
That's right.
And then let's take a BMW football module. Like I just did one of those the other day. I did a used one. And I put the old one in. It had a whole bunch of lights for stuff I guess was programmed to the other car, so it had to be reprogrammed to the car that I was putting it in to make everything operate correctly.
Absolutely.
So there's stuff like that, and then gauge clusters too. Some gauge clusters, like I think was it the VW ones, like the security's all in the gauge cluster, so you have to copy security over to the other cluster. So it's not just simple plug and play.
Yeah, those days are pretty much gone, except most of what we sell is plug and play, and if we know it isn't, we will tell you, and we'll tell you the exact steps you need to get your car fixed if that part is what's wrong with your car.
Same with like GM engine control modules. You have to do the 30-minute key relearn. Ford control modules or Ford engine control modules, most of them have PATs.
Yep.
So you have to do the PATs. There's really no way around it. You have to have a good scan tool for that. You have to have 2 keys. You can pre-program it, but it has to be set up to the car.
Absolutely. And another thing, the dealers, they tell you, oh, well, you can't use a used module. But at the same time, if you go to their parts department and buy a new one, it's actually a remanufactured unit. And what do you think a remanufactured unit is? It's been manufactured before. It's a used one. So don't be fooled by what the dealer says. They're not telling a lie in their heads, because they are fed this information from...
They're just doing what they're told.
Yeah, they're just fed that information from the manufacturer.
You sell a lot of Chrysler stuff.
Absolutely.
You couldn't tell you how many people called me and said, well, I can't reuse a used Chrysler controller, I need a new one. No, you can reuse a used Chrysler controller. Yeah, you can probably talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I sell like 3,500 of those a year, and every year is more and more. Most of those are actually becoming obsolete, and they're not even that old. They're not out there. But we sell all of them from '96 to 2013, 2014, pre-programmed, plug and play. When you bring that information into a dealer, some dealers are like, well, that's not going to work. Well, really? Because my numbers show otherwise. But
Yeah, and same with like, some of the newer GM stuff, the Global A stuff is non-reprogrammable. So there is some newer stuff that is not going to be reprogrammable. Obviously, kind of maybe planned obsolescence. Obviously, they don't want you using used parts because they can't sell new parts if you use used parts.
That's exactly
so
right.
there's some of that is going to come to play here in the future. But a lot of the older stuff is completely reprogrammable, completely reusable. Obviously, this is 2019. We want to be green, we want to recycle, we got to protect the earth. So using a used controller not only saves you money, but saves having to make new product.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that,
and most of it's good.
Yeah.
Thing is, like, I'd rather use used components versus remanufactured components any day of the week.
absolutely. The aftermarket remanufactured stuff is just, it's awful. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
awful. When I get a remanufactured Chrysler computer in, and we get thousands of them in, of Chrysler computers in every year, they go straight in trash. I mean, we throw them away. They're garbage, and they don't last. The repairs are, the last 60 days, great. Now I don't have to worry about it. You definitely don't want that.
I would agree. Like, some of the stuff I've seen that's been aftermarket, that's been repaired, is absolutely like horrific. I won't, like, I hate when customers call me like, oh, I bought this aftermarket part. Now there's some aftermarket parts, don't get me wrong. There's some aftermarket parts that have a place. I just don't see good aftermarket electronics.
Yeah, that's the stuff I try to stay away from.
Unless it's rebuilt by the OE.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like messing with it.
Yeah. The only other side is that if there is something that's a notorious problem, and this is the repair, it's been proven. I sell my Pro Rebuild account, my Pro Rebuild business. We do a lot of like older Ford EEC4, like 97 and older computers. We can fix every single one of those if they can be fixed. I've seen those burned up pretty bad, but there's a lot of parts that can be fixed and repaired. It's just, in my experience, I'm not going to name any names, but the big players out there, they don't put the time into doing it right and doing it so it'll last. I'll show you exactly. I got a couple examples here. So here's a couple crappy examples of some Chrysler revans. You can tell they've been like spray painted. I actually smell like they've been on fire too. They have stickers all over them. Now granted, we put stickers on them so we can identify them if they come back. But this is what they do to fix them. They cut a hole in the back of this. I mean,
that's not a proper.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, is this supposed to last? I mean, the back of this computer is a heatsink. That's why it's got fins on it, and they have just totally destroyed that heat dissipating property of this computer. I mean, they're junk. They're absolutely. You throw every single one away. They're just junk. I can't even sell them as a core. They're just junk. So I would definitely stay away from anything that looks remotely like that. If it has the original sticker on it, you're probably pretty good. Make sure wherever you buy has a warranty, because if you don't, well, that's where yours is going to end up.
That's one other thing about two rebuilders. I get a lot of people, and we tried to use a rebuilder here recently on Mercedes, because I absolutely hate Mercedes.
Yep.
Try to have a computer rebuilt on Mercedes. They advertise, this fee, super cheap fee, whatever it is, like $180, something like that. You send the computer, and of course, they get the computer and like, well, this computer's not any good. And this is, I feel, a more reputable company that has decent reviews. So that's one thing you always want to check is reviews.
Yep.
You want to see how relevant the reviews are, like how recently they were posted. But anyway, we send this computer, and of course they call and like, oh, well, it's $100 basically if you want your old computer back. We can't fix this junk, even though they say on their website, here's the thing we can fix. And then it's okay, well, you have another one you can sell me that's program ready to go. Oh no, we can't do it. Like, What do you mean you can't do it? Like, you advertise, they can't do it. And I got paid to get my old component back?
Absolutely. There's a lot of repair services out there where in the event they can't fix it, they still charge you $59 or whatever it is. Like, why would you pay for that? Why would you pay on a gamble? I mean, it's throwing money away, especially on something that is a notorious problem part. I would trust a 200,000 mile used part over one that someone's been in.
Every day. Every day. Like, the thing, we get a lot of components out of wrecked vehicles.
Absolutely.
And you got to think about this. Like, so I do a lot of wreck rebuilds.
Yep.
And, a lot of people say, oh, it's got a salvage title, it's not worth as much. I was told one thing, and when a car was running and driving, it drove to the scene of the wreck. Those parts are still good.
Yeah.
So a lot of these parts that we get, we're coming out of running and driving cars.
Absolutely.
So a lot of them are still good. Now, I will say one other thing is there's one particular company that I wouldn't even call them competition, because everybody buys stuff from them.
And then they end up buying it from us.
Yeah, they end up buying it from us. So what happens is, I literally think, I had a customer here locally 3 or 4 months ago. He sent out an engine computer. They said they rebuilt it. And he actually made the comment, he's like, I think they just sandblasted my case and sent it back. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm pretty sure it still has the same issue, the same codes. And like, I put one of my computers in it, and guess what? Fixed the problem.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure they just sandblasted the case and sent it back. Or I had one just literally here the other day, a BCM, a guy sent a BCM to a rebuilder. They told him the processor's bad, which funny, this rebuilder, it seems like that's the story that they give everybody. The processor's bad, the processor's bad, we can't fix it. So it was supposed to be like a $50 or $100 rebuild, turned into a $400 part they sent him. They sent it to him, wasn't even programmed like they told him it was going to be. It wasn't even programmed.
Yeah.
So now he's sending me the part so I can program it so it's correct for his vehicle.
Yeah.
So he spent $400 with this other person, and they kept his original part. He spent $400 and didn't fix his problem.
Yeah, I mean that's what I see a lot of times is you see these they've been cleaned, they've been polished, they look great, but who cares what the part looks like? It's under the hood. It never sees daylight.
You don't see it.
Yeah, you don't see it.
As long as it works.
Yeah, the fact is that yours. I'm assuming if this part is what's wrong with your vehicle, whatever it may be, it was used before it failed, right? So anything that you are going to put in that has been worked on or remanufactured, I use those terms loosely because that's kind of a joke, but any of those parts, I mean, do you really, would you rather trust someone that was in there or something that came out of something that worked? Now on a lot of our used parts, we have full vehicles we test things in. I mean, I have several vehicles I can program parts to, I verify they run, I test for all the common mistakes. I have very elaborate test rigs for climate controls and anti-theft modules. You have to have that to stand behind the product you sell. And I have reduced my returns to such low numbers, it's almost not even worth mentioning.
I think a lot of rebuilders, I don't think they care. Like, I think they'll send out 10 until they get one that finally works. Like me and you don't want the call back, hey, this thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the customer happy and come back to me for something else later in the future.
I want to do the research and development on my end because that's not the customer's responsibility. I don't want to waste your time because if it wastes your time, it wastes my time. I want to stand behind what I sell and I want you to fix your car the first time. There's no reason not to do that. It's just a lot of places, it's not even that they don't care, it's that they follow the law of averages. If it works more than it doesn't, then they're happy. And that's their business model, but that's certainly not ours.
And, proper diagnosis, like it's, when you buy a part from one of us, we want you, you work hard for your money. We don't want you just throwing your money out the window. Yeah. Like, so we want to make sure you properly diagnose your vehicle. Like, you don't want to just like start, I hate the parts cannon. Yeah, like, I get a lot of customers like, well, it could be this, 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 and this. I'm just going to start with this.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how you want to do it.
Absolutely.
Like, if you got tons of money to burn, go ahead. I'll sell you whatever you want.
Yeah.
But you need to properly start with diagnosing your vehicle, which comes back to proper power and ground. That's the first thing you need to check. Reading codes, not just from the suspected module, but from everything, and get an overall view of the health of the vehicle.
Yep.
And, you may have, like, a lot of people will call and they have a lot of wiring problems. And, like, most people don't, like, they go, like, oh, it just must be bad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to replace it.
I say a lot of the parts I get back from people that claim that they're bad, I'll plug it into my own vehicle here, and it works perfect. And when you ask them, well, so what's wrong with your vehicle? Well, I guess I have to figure that out. And that's what we would like to avoid. We don't want to not sell parts, but we want to sell parts that you need, not parts that you think you need. We want to help you get to that step where without a doubt that I'm going to put this part in and my truck's going to fire right up and I'm going to be able to drive it every day until something else happens that's totally unrelated.
The other thing is I hate when people call, they're like, I put your part in, it's doing the same thing.
Yep.
Well,
the common denominator is?
Yeah, it's not the part.
Yeah.
Like, you've got, if you put in two parts and you have the identical problem, you've got something somewhere else that you need to diagnose.
Absolutely.
And some of this is past, the DIYer's, skill level. Sometimes you need more test equipment or more tools in order to diagnose that part.
Absolutely.
But if you put two computers in and it does the same thing, it's not the computer. Like, you have to go and look somewhere else. And, it's part of that too, like talking about computers, like Ford Escapes 05 and 06.
Yeah.
That's the same with a Mazda?
Yeah.
Mazda Tribute.
Yeah.
So like on those, like people buy those computers and you have to replace all the coils. So like if you buy a Mazda or Escape computer and you put it in and you program it and it goes back out because the coils are bad again, like that's not my fault, that's not your fault. Nope. That's because you didn't do proper diagnosis and replace all the coils before you put in that. So some modules require you have to buy extra parts. So you've got to do that as part of your homework when you buy a part. Is there going to be other parts you need to replace that's going to affect the longevity of the part you're replacing?
Absolutely. So in closing here, if you would like a video about a particular part or a particular repair, just drop a line in the comments. Say what kind of vehicle you have, what kind of problem you're having, and we'll look into it.
Yeah, we're going to start. I'm not going to say this is going to be on a regular weekly basis, but probably monthly.
Yeah, absolutely.
May get some other people in here. If you have more technical questions,
Yeah.
let us know and we'll start trying to address those for you.
Yep. Anyway, have a good day, guys.
Yep, see ya.